and welcome to part 5 of Project X-Wing. These are the temperatures that we had on the last video, 70 degrees basically all round. So what we've decided to do is to fit a 40mm fan in the back of the model and then drill some holes. So I started off with 1.5mm holes and I've opened them up to 2mm holes, but it still isn't shifting enough air and it just hasn't brought down the temperatures enough to, you know, for what we want. We just don't want the model failing, you know, cracking or warping or bending and losing its shape or whatever after 6 months, after all this effort that we've put in to making this thing. So we might cut the back right out of this because we can always take a moulding of that shape in either the two halves or a complete shell thing and make it out of mesh and paint it or whatever. But we've got to get rid of the heat basically to fix the problems that we've got, because it's just running way too hot. 70 degrees I think is going to damage the nylon. It is like a nylon, it goes like all raggy. So with that 40mm fan in the back now and those holes in it, I'm still getting temperatures of like basically 70 degrees at the front and 60 at the tail. There's just not enough airflow through it. I had a 40mm fan that in the sort of lid, I drilled some holes in the back there and we put a fan sitting in here like so. It did exhaust some hot air, and the rear fan, temperature, that rear light went down to 57. I did take another short video of it, but this one was still 68 and this was 66 I think. So they hadn't come down much. That one had come, the back one had come down like 13 degrees, but the front ones hadn't. So we're going to see, because this is our second model, remember, this is not the one we've got all the LEDs and that mounted in. So we're thinking now, fan in here and put up, obviously not that half, we're going to put it in the top half because hot air rises, doesn't it? So we'll have that in there like that. We're going to have that in there like that. I'm going to just hot glue it in there. We're going to maybe hole saw this out with a view to either taking a casting of the other model or putting the mesh over it or something, but we've got to get rid of the heat. I mean, it runs, but will it still be running at Christmas? I don't know. Will it have like sagged or something? We don't know. So rather than do all this work and then have to take it apart again, we've decided that we're going to try and do better cooling on it. We're going to I've put a fan here. This is just hot glued in already. I'm just going to run this down to Dean and he's going to cut it. We're going to just run this back. Unfortunately, these are test fans because they're ones I've already got laying around. They're 5 volt. These others are 12. So it means having another voltage in here. There's 5 volts in it anyway from the Arduino. And on the other model, there is actually 5 volts from a voltage regulator, so we could run these fans in here. But whether we replace them and put them with 12 volts so that they're all running on one supply, because it's less cables going down, we've already got enough as it is. If you look at the other model, there's literally a load of ribbon, or no, there's 2 ribbon cables going it. So we're going to go down, we're going to run this down to Dean today, and he's going to cut the back out of this half, I'm thinking, and we'll glue this fan in, and I'll probably end up cutting these plugs off. It does actually come with a controller board, which I might just put it in here and just lay it in here while we're testing, so that it's in its mains. So there's mains already on this side here. There's already mains here, so I can just loop across. Probably drop it in the other side actually, loop across in there, lay the board in there that can have the fans running, then we can test it, see how it works, and then go from there. And I'll report back when we've got this done, and we'll run it again and see how much temperatures we've dropped. I mean, the lower we get it, the better. I think from the model's perspective, the fans are fine, you know, the heat sinks are fine like that, but it's how long will it go in the model like it before it does damage or it goes brittle or something, because this is not like a plastic, it's almost like nylon, it cuts like nylon, so don't know, we'll see. Anyway, I'll report back when we've done that. Thanks for watching. So I've now, I'll turn this phone up, so I've just hot glued that onto the side here just to hold it. I have now, come on, focus, I have now, if you see it here, I've now just joined that up so the switch is shorted, so we don't need to switch in anymore. So I will just put that in, and then these I will just solder the plugs back on so it all goes back in easily for now. And then what we'll do is redo this when we've cracked the problem. Right, so a quick recap on what we've done. I fitted this fan here into the nose, blowing that way towards the tail. These are just hot glued down. Probably going to stick with hot glue because it's great. You can just take it off, don't like it, and maybe have to touch up the inside a little bit now with paint, but other than that it's fine. I've then just put this one in the back, which is where we had, if you remember, we took out, so I'm trying to do this the wrong way around. We took out the back, didn't we? So that, whoops, we took out the back so that we could get the cooling right, and then worry about fixing the cosmetics looks of it. We're worried about fixing the heat problem first, and then we'll worry about the cosmetics after. I've just put this little board in here, which is this power board we got off of a Poundland kind of something like that, charger. 5 volts, has its own PSU, obviously mains from over here. So funnily enough, they've marked these mains wires black and red, which obviously you need to be careful that you don't think they're 5 volts. But this is not permanent, this is just for now, so we can test it with this. And then they're linked into their own board. I've extended these wires to the fan so that we can lay the model over. I know there's going to be tons of wires in here eventually, but it is what it is. And I've extended this 3 volt wire as well because it's doing my head in. I made it too short, it's just driving me nuts. And that's it. I will now fire up the 5 volts, make sure that there's no bangs, and we'll go from there. I will video it. So here it is. It's shut up. I've still not connected the Nano, but everything else is on it. There's something just touching, a wisp of plastic or something. It's just touching this rear fag, but I can't see it. So I'm thinking that if this is successful, you might not be able to hear it on there, but I can. There's something like a little wisp of glue or something, it's just catching it somewhere, but I'm damned if I can find it. But what we'll do, I'll fire this up now, I'll put it back in that holder, and we'll run it for an hour or so and see how it goes. I mean, all in so far it's done probably 10 hours, you know, running at like 70 degrees, and then we got it down to 57, didn't we, at the back, and sort of 56-ish, 60 sort of thing in the middle and the front here. But we'll run it again and see what happens. I shall end it here and I will start it up when I get it all connected. Right, well this has now been running for about sort of 15 minutes and it's kind of leveled off, so I'm not expecting it now to climb much more. You know, left on, so once it gets to a certain point you can leave it on for 4 hours and it doesn't get any hotter. So we kind of see it's sort of floating a bit up and down at a minute. I've got the laptop recording the temperatures so that it's like a log. I can't hold this still. So it's got like a log so that we know, you know, whether how much it's gone up and down. I'll put a timestamp on it as well. So yeah, that's it. This bigger fan definitely seems to be shoving the heat out. I mean, it looks ugly, but you know, it's moving a lot of air. And as I said, we've got the 40mm at the front now, and then we've got another 50 in the middle, and then this other 50mm at the back. So yeah, we're moving a lot of air through it now. I mean, when you think we started off probably a week ago on 70 degrees, and now here we are, we're 54 in the middle, which is the hottest one. And that's because it's, when you look at the model, just move the laptop out of the way. Oh, when you look at the model, it's kind of in like a well. That centre one, you can see the centre light just there, and it's kind of in a well, so it's kind of like out of the main airflow, so it's kind of like in its own little pocket, so it's sort of getting a little bit hotter than the other two. But to bring that front nose one down is something. I didn't think we would achieve that. There's more things I guess we could do with this. The one in the well here, I could probably maybe bolt something to the heatsink, like a kind of a, you know, copper plate with holes in it, so that the air goes through the copper plate, pulling the heat out of it, shoving it out the back of the model. That's another thing I could do. But I'm quite happy with that, to be honest with you. Going down from nearly 70 degrees down to what we've done in a week isn't bad. And all we've got to do is repair the ugliness of the back, maybe paint the fan so you don't see the black, maybe put take a moulding of the back, you know, because we've got the other models, we could take a moulding of it and then make both halves, so we can press like an aluminium mesh into it to make it form. I don't think we'd form things like this, but we might get these sort of shapes a bit. We might get something so it doesn't look quite so ugly, but you know, any kind of mesh over it is going to hide. You know, we could paint it or something, you know, spray it like we were going to do it with an airbrush, weren't we? We have to think of something, because the heat's our enemy. We don't want it getting too hot, so we kind of fixed that. Maybe centre the fan a bit more, perhaps. I don't know. It was just to see how it goes, isn't it? At this stage, we were just seeing what we could achieve. And we've still got the other model that we can do things with as well. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that today. So I will report back and go from there. But all being well, I'm thinking now is we will either worry about fixing the hole at the back now, or what I'll do now is move on to, I want to take a casting of this with clay, and I want to take it from sort of here to here and go down to sort of get like basically here, if you like, and then make it in clay, so we can then mould another one so that we get this pattern on everything, and that will then go under here so we can fill this all in. And we've got some plastic. I haven't got them in here actually. It's like I think it's called poly mold or something, and basically you put it in boiling water and it molds it all melts the plastic, so you can like squeeze it and you can make shapes. Whether it's going to mold as good as this, that I don't know. If it doesn't, we can always go back to plaster of Paris, because that will mold quite well. But again, it's just trial and error really. But that's probably going to be one of the next things I do, and I'll make a video of doing that. And I think the clay takes 3 days to set. It's not, you don't have to bake it in the oven. It's hobbycraft stuff. You just shove it on there, and I'll make it go down to here. Like I said, leave it 4 days, let it go hard, and then we can take another moulding of it with the plastic or plaster of Paris or whatever we decide to do. But I shall video some of that. But I think from a heat perspective, I mean, I'll leave this on and report back in another hour. It may not be tonight because it's quite late now, but what I will do is leave it on probably tomorrow night for 3 or 4 hours to see how hot it gets, and go from there. Report back later on.